Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today, well, today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. It's the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I always like to say, the fun is all in the trying. It's just going to be us today. Mike got called in. Hey, it's the problem with this new gig that he's got, man. Just sometimes he gets a holla, he gets a ring, and he's got to go fly. So that's where he's at. That's what he's doing. But I'm here. You're here. And we're going to have a good time with the news today because, as usual, there's a lot of stuff going on. Whenever Donald Trump is president, it seems like the news never, ever stops. Sometimes it slows down, but it never seems to stop. So let's go ahead and we'll get right into it. But before we do, we're going to do as we usually do, and we're going to start off with a quick shout out to our sponsors. All right, that's going to start with our friends over at Hitman Industries. Hitman Industries produce rifle barrels and handgun barrels, but they produce them at any length. You can find them at hitmanindustries.net. If you've purchased an AR recently, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels. Why not get another one? So whether or not you're doing a brand new build or you're looking to rebarrel your old rifle, start your project at hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the folks over at the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. In fact, Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. Won't you find out why by visiting them at cragop.org? That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. Why is it spelled weird? Because they like helping Americans wear guns. They like it so much that they're willing to give you a discount. All you have to do is use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you're going to get a nifty little discount on your hog holster. And then finally, these folks, let me just tell you right now, they specialize in group sales. If you have a group, if you are the purchasing agent for your department or your club or your unit or whatever, and you're looking for tactical gear, let me tell you about the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. That would be uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have very competitive prices and the best customer service available on the market. You need to check them out today. That's uscombatgear.com. Once again, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. And then finally, I also want to encourage you, especially since, it's just going to be us today. I like having a conversation. I like being able to talk with y'all. So do me a favor. Give me a shout out. If you're watching the show 3 p.m. Pacific, like in the 3 p.m. hour, or you're watching it 6 p.m. hour back east, guess what? This show is live, meaning I'm taking your comments. I'm looking right over here. I'm looking to see what you might have to say. So go ahead, give me a shout out. Let us know what you think about the program. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you disagree with me, that's okay, because every time you disagree with me, it gives me an opportunity to mock you.
Oh, wow. Is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
As Mike likes to say, we will mock you. Anyway, I do it because it's fun and it's entertaining, and people enjoy a good mocking every once in a while. So, but then again, most of y'all generally tend to agree with us. I think that's the reason why you guys tune in on a regular basis, because we generally tend to agree with people or want to watch people who think about the world in a way in which we do. I've tried watching, I tried when it was MSNBC. I have not spent a lot of time on MS now. There were times when I could only handle it for 5-10 minutes at a time before I just wanted to let me clarify. During the entire 5-10 minutes, I was yelling at the TV because they were just such idiots over there. And not idiots and liars, right? Let me be clear, because some of them realize they know that what they're doing is propaganda, not press. And that's, I guess, more I'm yelling at the people who actually believe that what these folks are saying is actually the truth, because I think And I know that what they're saying is puppycock is what it is. It's all bad, all wrong. But it is what it is. Now, leading the news today, and I wanted to make sure to tell you all about this one. Leading the news today. Whenever we get a nice win in when it comes to the to gun rights, I always want to make sure that leads the way. And that's going to start with our story from over at Breitbart.com or Breitbart News, where California is going to have to pay a nice hefty little check to gun rights, to the gun rights community. Because, well, they decided to violate our First Amendment rights when it comes to the Second Amendment. As is being reported over at Breitbart News, California agrees to pay $1.3 million settlement for unconstitutional ban on gun advertising. On Tuesday, that would be yesterday, California agreed to settle with the Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and other plaintiffs, and will pay over $1.3 million to cover the plaintiffs' attorney's fees. The settlement arose from a lawsuit that was filed against California's marketing firearms to minors law, which crossed into First Amendment territory by banning firearm advertisements. Breitbart News quoted Ninth Circuit Judge Kenneth Lee's September 2023 majority opinion against the law, where he wrote, quote, that the marketing firearms and minors law does not directly and materially advance California's substantial interest in reducing gun violence and the unlawful use of firearms by minors. There was no evidence in the record that a minor in California has ever unlawfully bought a gun, let alone used it, let alone because of an ad. Lee added, quote, California cannot straitjacket the First Amendment by on the first hand allowing minors to possess and use firearms, and then on the other hand banning truthful advertisements about lawful use of firearms. The Firearms Policy Coalition announced the settlement on X, writing, quote, after losing twice in the Ninth Circuit, California has agreed that its minor firearms advertising ban violates the First Amendment, and will pay the plaintiffs $1,381,749.72 for attorney's fees. The Second Amendment Foundation also posted on X, quote, Gavin Newsom passed a law to attack the First Amendment because he was mad about 22 LR rifle that was meant for junior shooters. That little stunt has cost California taxpayers over $1 million, not including whatever the California Department of Justice spent on their own lawyers, $350,000 to SAF, $550,000 to the California Rifle Pistol Association Coalition of Plaintiffs, and the same lawsuit, and another $480,000 in Parallel Safari Club international case on the same issues. Now, here's the thing that I need you to recognize here. And these are the sorts of lawsuits that we're also filing. This is not necessarily directly a Second Amendment victory, although it is. It's a Second Amendment victory because the belief that gun grabbers have is that if you believe in the Second Amendment, all of your other constitutional rights become suspect. You no longer have a right to freedom of speech, right? If your kid wants to wear, I support the Second Amendment on his shirt to school, some schools will tell him you either have to turn it inside out, take it off, or get kicked out of school. They've done that. That has happened multiple times, right? They believe that if you want to put up a sign promoting the advertisement of a firearm on the inside of your store, but if it can be seen on the outside of your store in California, and I'm sorry, in this case, we're talking a handgun, guess what? You would get in trouble. You would get fined, right? There are a number of different things, a number of different points that they'll make where it is okay for them to silence you. If you believe in the Second Amendment, you lose your right to freedom of speech. But that's not the only one. Red flag laws, great example, right? Red flag laws, you lose your right to due process. You lose your right to face your accuser, right? You lose the right to against unreasonable search and seizure. You lose private property rights, right? And because it's a civil action, you don't even have the right to representation. How about that? Right? Once again, all of your other rights become suspect because you believe in and because you support or because you wish to exercise the Second Amendment. Folks, I always said this, they treat the Second Amendment like it's a right, but it's not a right. You know what I mean? Like it's the redheaded stepchild of constitutional rights. Some of y'all will get that, some of y'all won't. Maybe I'm dating myself with that one. But this is a phenomenal win because I think in many, many, many other cases, what's going to wind up happening is we're going to have the ability to stand up and take a fight, right? We're going to have the ability as they go after these other rights. Because, by the way, one of the great things about this particular case, there's right, is they're very specific. When it comes to the First Amendment, our courts generally have been very, very good. Whether it's right-leaning court or left-leaning court, they generally, as a general rule, has been pretty good when it comes to, look, this is strict scrutiny, right? You better come up with a heck of a good reason to violate the First Amendment. And so that's one of the reasons why, in particular, organizations like the Second Amendment Foundation and the Firearms Policy Coalition have really sought out these lawsuits to really try and go after, once again, these other rights that are being subverted because of the Second Amendment, because there are people who believe in the Second Amendment. So once again, I just want to give a shout out to the folks over at the Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation. This is a big win because lawyers cost money. And to see these things, and by the way, this money will go right back into these organizations and will be used to help file other lawsuits. Now, you need to understand that these organizations, they don't get taxpayer dollars, right? They don't get the money. Like when you and I pay taxes, that money's not going to defend our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. That money's going to the attorneys general and the district attorneys and the city managers who are attacking our right to keep and bear arms. No. See, those organizations depend on contributions, not just from victories like this, but they depend on contributions from folks like me and you to be able to seed and pay for these lawsuits. And in case y'all don't know, lawyers cost money. So if you get a chance, if you feel so inclined, do yourself a favor. Contact these organizations: California Rifle Pistol Association, the Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation, and give them a donation. Doesn't matter how small, how big, but do something. Let them know that you appreciate the work that they are doing because, once again, they're not just fighting for your right to keep and bear arms. They're fighting for your civil rights. And as I always like to say, because it's a fight for your civil rights, if you do not use them, you will lose them. So make sure you do that. All right, moving right along. This one, I have to admit, now I'm not a big fan of hate crime laws. I think that if you do something that is illegal to someone, the penalty should be stiff. I mean, if you're doing violence to somebody, the penalty should be stiff, regardless of your age, regardless of your race, regardless of your. Well, I'll say, let me give it not regardless because of your age. Let me undo that. Regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion. I don't believe that we ought to be picking winners and losers. Like say, okay, well, if someone decides to mug someone who's Muslim, you get a greater penalty than if you decide to mug someone who's Christian, right? I don't even care. Quite honestly, I don't even care what your motivations are. I don't think that we ought to become the mind police and get in people's head and figure out why they did something. The fact that they did it means that they need to be held accountable, right? Oh, by the way, let me go back real quick. Lars Hendrickson, watching over at Facebook. Lars, thank you so much. Lars commented, winning, great. Yes, it's always great when we can win. And let me just say this one more time. Donald Trump deserves a few thanks for that as well. He's the one who has helped get fill a lot of these judicial vacancies with people who actually believe in the Second Amendment. So a lot of the wins that we're getting, it's the fruit of his judicial appointment. So let me just go ahead and point that out. Anyway, all that having been said, getting back to the attacker. So you might recall, I think it was last week, you had a couple of diners who were attacked. They were attacked because they were speaking Hebrew. And they were attacked by two individuals who evidently did not like the fact that they were speaking Hebrew or that they were Jewish. Well, those attackers have been apprehended. And a shocking decision is that they've decided that they are not going to prosecute these folks of hate charges. Well, let's read. This is being reported by the New York Post. It says 3 suspects accused of brutally assaulting 2 Israeli Americans outside a diner in San Jose, Northern California, will not face hate crime charges in the attack, prosecutors revealed. 3 men, I'm not going to say their names, were hit with felony assault charges, while one of them faced an additional misdemeanor battery charge after they turned themselves in to the San Jose Police Department on Monday. Investigators had been looking at the attack as a potential hate crime after the Hebrew-speaking victims alleged their attackers used anti-Semitic language. And here's one example. Now, by the way, let me just keep reading. So these are some of the photos taken from the attack. All right, it says here, it's not clear why prosecutors did not move forward with the hate crime charges, though the Santa Clara District Attorney's Office said the case remains an active investigation. Governor Gavin Newsom condemned the attacks as, quote, disgusting, and San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan said that anti-Semitism and all acts of hatred have no place in San Jose. The shocking assault took place in broad daylight on March 8th outside the upmarket restaurant Augustine in Santana Row. Onlookers said the suspects heard the victims speaking Hebrew and stopped to attack them as they passed by. The attackers allegedly spoke Farsi during the attack and said things like, "Don't F with Iran," said the San Francisco Chronicle reported. Witnesses said the men also said F Jews. So now, once again, this is not coming from the people who were involved, people who were attacked. This is not coming from the right-wing media. This is coming from witnesses. So if witnesses heard them say it, if there are witnesses that heard them say this while they were attacking them, if we're going to be the thought police, if we're going to debate whether or not these folks should be charged with a hate crime, shouldn't one of the reasons why they should be charged with a hate crime have something to do, I don't know, with the fact that they were saying anti-Semitic things while they were doing it? I mean, shouldn't that be a dead giveaway? I mean, if we're going to have hate crime laws, if we're going to additionally prosecute people for the things they do, I mean, if you're going to have them, why not enforce them? Why do it selectively? You didn't say when you passed the law, well, if they're attacking people because of their Muslim faith, or if they're attacking people because they happen to be black or Latino, or if you're attacking them because they're gay or lesbian or transgender, but we're not going to allow it to count if the person happens to be straight white male, or maybe they're a male, but maybe they're black, but they're still a male, so we're not going to allow that to happen. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, none of that is in the law. So why are you discriminating when you know that this is based on? By the way, this is nothing new. They have been, ever since hate crime laws have been put in place. I remember we've talked about them, on this show, instances where individuals attacked someone because they were white, because they were Christian, and were not charged with hate crimes. because they were male, right? We've talked about it ad nauseum. It's not anything new, but because they happen to be not a part of some uh, specially oppressed minority group, they don't get any special considerations. That's the way these hate laws work now. That's not the way the laws were written, but that likely was the intent of the people who did it. At least the people who are enforcing it. That seems to be the intent that they have. Funny how that works, isn't it? Anyway, you guys remember Nick Shirley, right? Nick Shirley was the guy who basically uncovered all of the waste, fraud, and abuse that has taken place with federal money and with state money in Minnesota. Right now, we're knowing at least at minimum is us somewhere up around $9 billion. Well, he's now in California, and he's released his first video. And here's a brief segment from that video where he's talking about, the stuff that's going on here in the state of California.
Here in California, what makes this hospice and home healthcare fraud so hard to crack down on, take for example this one right here, All Day Hospice Care. They have billed $3.1 million, and per beneficiary, that's about $6,000, and 24 claims per patient with only 2 codes, which means 2 services. They've had over 505 patients, and they started billing in 2023 and accumulated $3.1 million in 19 months. And that is over 12,000 claims. The velocity of the billing here is what leads me to believe this is potentially fraudulent. And what makes this hard to track is that they then just rent small little suites inside of these kind of buildings, and they run their operations from there. And once any sort of suspicion comes, they then leave, close down shop, and who knows where they go. Are they going back to Armenia? Are they going back to Russia? Are they going back to their native country? Or are they just moving to another building inside of a location here in Los Angeles? And these areas where these people are committing this fraud, it just looks dilapidated. You have storefronts that are completely closed down, homeless people walk on the streets, these businesses are all boarded up, and they're prying on people who are on the verge of death to make all their money. That's what hospice is. But that is what the business model of the hospice is they just literally rent out these small little suites, charge millions of dollars over the years. Oh my gosh. And you just have people peeing. How was that piss? You what?
Anyway, so there's a full 40-minute video. If you go to his Twitter page, you can watch the entire 40-minute video from the first one. Now, according to him right now, so far, and this is just off the front, he says, Nick Shirley uncovers $170 million in alleged fraud across California daycare and hospice operations. Now, this is just what he has discovered. It says here, independent journalist Nick Shirley has released a devastating 40-minute investigative video that exposes what appears to be a massive waste and potential fraud in California hospice, Medi-Cal, and daycare programs. His report, now viewed by more than 7.7 million times on X, uncovers over $170 million in questionable billings tied to ghost hospice and daycare operations that show virtually no signs of actually caring for patients or children. Shirley, already known for shining the light on government waste through his earlier work on Minnesota daycare systems, which featured the infamous Leering Center, has brought the same boots-on-the-ground approach to California, an approach that any state or federal auditor could have found if they acted on the numerous red flags and warnings found in years of California state auditors' annual reports and related California Globe reporting. In the viral video, Shirley reports that hospice enrollment in California has skyrocketed approximately 1,000% in recent years, a staggering increase that should have triggered additional scrutiny. His his team conducted field investigations at dense clusters of hospice and adult care providers in Los Angeles, focusing heavily on Victory Boulevard in Van Nuys. Time and again, registered addresses turned out to be vacant shells, buildings with dead phone lines, piles of unopened mail, parking lots filled with luxury vehicles, and zero evidence of patients or caregiving, even as millions of taxpayer dollars continue to flow in public programs. Shirley notes, these practices have gone on for years under weak oversight. Hardworking Californians deserve real accountability, and this level of abuse cannot be allowed to continue. But oh no, I say nay, nay. It must continue because, well, Democrats. Not only can it continue, but it will continue. And hopefully this will spark, what sparked a visit to Minnesota. Right now, we just heard of the announcement. The vice president now is going to be running a new program. He's got a new thing, and he's going to be going around looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. In California, well, California's is where he's going to start, hopefully. And here's the thing. It'll be a good opportunity for him to take down one of the leading candidates on the Democratic side for president of the United States. Now, that's not to say that that's the reason to do it, but if you need a political reason to do it, can you think of a better one? I can't think of a better one. I mean, for real, can you think of a better reason for him to do that? No, a better political reason. Ultimately, the president claimed that there's enough waste, fraud, and abuse that if they were able to uncover all of it, that it would wipe out. I don't recall if he said our deficit or the debt. I don't know that there is enough to wipe out the debt because, well, it's tens of trillions of dollars. Is there enough waste, fraud, and abuse out there to get rid of the deficit? I find that believable. I don't know if I would say easily believable. I really would hate it if that were the case, that there's really that much waste, fraud, and abuse going on. Do I find it possible? Yeah. Being here in California, seeing how some of these programs are run, I find it very easy to believe that there's that much waste, fraud, and abuse. I find it in particular in places like California, where we have very, very lax enforcement of rules, where we have very, very little scrutiny of any of these programs. And when it happens to be federal money, there's even less scrutiny. People pay even less attention to what is going on. Here's an example. This is from another independent journalist. He was reporting on this. I once again, this is another story that I found to be quite believable.
A journalist walked into a building in LA and found 81 hospices registered at one address. She knocked on doors, out to lunch. Same sign, every visit, for weeks. One office was an auto body shop on the second floor.
Why are you taking picture? Why are you asking some questions?
No cars. When she started asking questions, someone called 911. 31% of all hospices in America are registered in LA County. 2% of seniors in America live in LA County. You do the math.
Now, I wish he had said the name of the reporter and included a link to their report, but I don't find that hard to believe. I really don't. He actually included video from the person who did the reporting. In any case, I can guarantee you that this is going on all throughout the nation, not just in California, not just in Minnesota, but I'll also be willing to bet you it's even more prevalent in places like Los Angeles, in places like the San Francisco Bay Area, in places controlled by liberal Democrats, because for them it is so important to make sure that we're helping the poor, that we don't put any checks in place. We don't have checks and balances. We don't make sure that the money isn't being wasted. They care. They say they claim to care a whole lot about the poor and about the needy, but they don't seem to give a rip about the taxpayer. Even if that taxpayer is poor, even if that taxpayer is needy, they don't seem to really care about them. They don't seem to care enough about the poor and the needy to keep the money that was supposed to go to help them from being stolen and abused, from being misused, from being taken away. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. There's two reasons. One, they don't care about the actual outcome. They care about the intent, right? If they fix the problem, then they can't run on that problem anymore. So they don't care about fixing the problem. All they care about is looking like they care. That's really about it. The other issue is this. Take a look at the people running these programs. Oftentimes you will find it is their friends. It is the politicians, the governors, the legislators. Usually it's their friends that are running these departments and these organizations, that are getting tons of money, that are running these agencies, that are getting tons of money. And in the case of some of these hospice care or day cares, a lot of that money is being funneled right back to the politicians who won't say anything to them in the form of campaign contributions. It's a scheme. It is a scheme. And it's not a new scheme, but it does appear to be one that folks just don't seem to be bright enough to figure out. And I can't figure out why they're not bright enough to figure it out, because, the left is so much smarter than we are. I mean, they're brilliant. Just ask them. They'll tell you. And by the way, they are also more moral than we are. So because they are so much smarter than we are, because they are so much more moral than we are, you would think that they would uncover all of this waste, fraud, and abuse, that they would expose them and make sure that the taxpayer dollar is protected. But it doesn't seem to ever happen. I wonder why that is. Did I sound facetious enough? Did I sound mocking enough? Okay. All right. If I didn't, please let me know. All right. Yesterday, we told you about the accusations against one civil rights icon, Cesar Chavez, that he has been embroiled in sexual misconduct with minors. And yesterday, they really just kind of talked broadly about it. Well, turns out the accusations are a lot more detailed than we once thought, or than was thought. And it actually includes another civil rights icon here in California.
Civil rights leader Dolores Huerta is accusing labor leader and fellow civil rights activist Cesar Chavez of sexual assault.
In an Instagram post this morning, Huerta says in part, quote, "I am nearly 96 years old, and for the last 60 years I've kept a secret because I believe that exposing the truth would hurt the farm worker movement I have spent my entire life fighting for. As a young mother in the 1960s, I experienced two separate sexual encounters with Cesar. The first time I was manipulated and pressured into having sex with him, and I didn't feel I could say no because he was someone that I admired. The second time I was forced against my will and in an environment where I felt trapped."
Earlier this week, the United Farm Workers Union said it'll be pulling back from Cesar Chavez Day events after abuse allegations surfaced against him. Chavez died in 1993. He was a labor organizer who co-founded the UFW in the early 1960s. The Cesar Chavez Foundation.
Yeah, well, hopefully Mr. Chavez is burning in hell. If there is justice, and I do believe that there is, that's where he will be, unless, of course, before he died, he gave his life to the Lord and sought forgiveness of his sins. Well, then it's under the blood. But anyway, all that having been said, by the way, this report right here is from the LA Times. So the poop has hit the fan when the mainstream media, in particular the LA Times, is reporting on it. Cesar Chavez abused girls, so not just one, girls. In fact, Huerta came out as a result of these allegations from other women who were young girls who were abused by Cesar Chavez. So this isn't the initial one that came out. This is just a new accusation. Anyway, it says here, Cesar Chavez, the iconic labor leader, is accused of sexually assaulting two underage girls in the 1970s, as well as fellow farm worker leader Dolores Huerta in the 1960s, according to an investigation from the New York Times. Allegations have sparked public outcry from elected leaders and spurred a wider reckoning of a towering figure in California history, the namesake of many streets, parks, and even federal commemorative holiday. The New York Times interviewed two women who said they were sexually abused by Chavez, one reportedly when they were children. Quote, both women have struggled with depression, panic attacks, and substance abuse in the years since. They maintained their silence for decades, fearing speaking out would tarnish Mr. Chavez's legacy, but decided in recent months, after being approached by reporters, that their stories stories also counted, the paper reported. Huerta told the paper she was, quote, raped by Chavez in a secluded grape field in Delano, California in 1966. In an Instagram post, Huerta said she kept the incident secret for 60 years because she believed exposing the truth would hurt farm worker movement, and I spent my entire life fighting for it. In a statement to the Los Angeles Times, the Chavez family expressed shock and sadness regarding the accusations. And by the way, this is not the only ones. There's other folks who've talked about they were raped from the time. Once again, I do not. One of the accusations is someone who said they were raped multiple times from the age of 13 all the way until they became an adult, and they eventually would wind up on drugs. This was one of the other two people. They eventually wound up on drugs, and when they came back to confront him, he basically said, "Well, he basically threw her under the bus." So, anyway, here's the thing, folks. And I think Mike talked about it yesterday. In the end, I'm glad to see that nobody is defending this guy, right? Unless there's evidence that this is a lie. I'm glad to see now that I'm finding it hard to believe that this is not true, but I'm glad to see that even the mainstream media is stepping up and speaking the truth. Now, here's what I also want you to recognize. And I'm going to compare this to accusations being made of President Trump, because I hear plenty of people on the left and plenty of people now, not so much in the media, they talk about how Trump is in the Epstein files. But once again, they also make it a point to clearly say there are zero accusations of him doing anything wrong, right? They make it a point to say that. But yet, people on the left don't really care. And I'm really curious to see how many people on the left, and when I say the far left, because I believe there are wackos on the far left, there are going to be people who are going to defend Chavez. Now, they're not saying anything right now. You're not hearing from them. And I am hoping, because I do want to have some hope for mankind, that there is nobody out there sick enough to come out and try and defend Cesar Chavez and what he did. Well, no. This is indefensible. This is indefensible. And yes, he needs to be stripped of his national holiday. Yes, if you named anything after him, it's time to unname it after him. This is not, he cheated on his wife. This is, this is, he created. If there is a meaning of the word immoral or moral turpitude, this guy has violated it, right? He has done some disgusting, and I say disgusting things, and needs to be, and once again, at the very least, his legacy needs to be held to account. And by the way, you can separate the man from the organization, right? You can. I mean, United Farm Workers, he may have been the leader, but there were people at United Farm Workers, plenty of other people who weren't engaged in sex with children that you can look to as a leader, as the ones to whom to credit these things. And by the way, that's the other thing. And Mike and I talked about this yesterday. A lot of this he helped do. A lot of the good things he helped do does not excuse the bad things. It doesn't. And no need to get into the good things. But you can acknowledge that the good things are good things. You just don't have to necessarily credit them. You don't have to spend time talking about him to talk about the things you think are good things. How about that? I'm trying to be both diplomatic, yet not make it sound like I'm trying to condone anything, because I'm not. I really am not. But dude is disgusting, and anybody who would come out and try and defend him is also disgusting. And I'm very, very happy to see that there are not people out there doing that. But I would like to see some of these far leftists come out and say that when I saw a video of Gavin Newsom, and he seemed almost scared to say anything bad about Chavez. We're just processing. We're still processing. If it's true, it's disgusting, and he is disgusting. You can say that. How about that? Why? How about you say that? That's not that hard. That's not that hard to say, is it? If it's true, it's disgusting, and he is disgusting. You can't say that? Why is that so hard to say? I don't know. I don't know why it's hard to say. But for some folks on the left, they do seem to have some issues kind of pointing out that very, very obvious truth. Anyway, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word. Get your Hog Holster today. Want to start off with this video, and it's a real simple one. It's Sean Hannity and Stephen A. Smith. And for those of you who think that black people are not smart enough to get an ID in order to be able to vote, let's just listen to Stephen A. Smith. What Stephen A. Smith has to say about that.
Can we get the no voter ID thing out the way? Can we get that out the way?
Yeah.
If the mayor of New York City is requiring two IDs to shovel snow, to shovel snow,
emergency snow
okay,
shoveling.
Really, to shovel snow. How the hell do you not need ID to vote? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Can we just get away with that? Can we just ignore that one? Can we ignore that one?
Oh, I'll let you,
that's
because
ridiculous.
It's stupid.
It's dumb.
All right.
Absolutely dumb.
Yes, it's dumb. Anyway, so I just thought, once again, and understand this, that's, 76% of black people polled, those are the ones that supposedly are not, we're the ones that are supposedly not smart enough to be able to get an ID to vote, even though we can get one to rent a car or to vote in NAACP elections. We're not able or capable enough to be able to get an ID to vote in national election. Anyway, all that having been said, here you have, once again, a person who is not a conservative and not necessarily a friend of conservatives pointing that out. Okay, here's another one. These next two are comedians. I think you're gonna find these to be interesting.
Look, you can't run a company on diversity. That's not how that works. You end up with people in situations that should never be there. LA had those big ass fires, and a couple weeks before the fires, their lesbian fire chief was asked in an interview what her number one priority was. And she said diversity. If you're a firefighter and somebody asks you what your number one priority is, the absolute layup to just say fighting fires.
I that's exactly what I thought at the time. But such was not the case. Okay, this next one, well, let's just say I am not sexist, but I do enjoy a good joke about the fairer gender.
In the last 10 years, there's actually been 20% increase in women in government, which is probably good, but there's also a 20% increase in the national debt, most likely unrelated, but a little bit of emotional spending on Ukraine.
Yeah, that's funny. Come on, don't get offended. Don't get offended, y'all. Anyway, dude is funny. He was just here in Sacramento, and I missed his comedy show when he was here. I gotta try and hit him up again next time he makes it out to Sacramento. I like him because, by the way, he does hit both sides. And what I also like about him is he hits my number one rule when it comes to political comedy: be funny. I don't care if you make fun of my guy or you make fun of their guy. I don't care if you make fun of my party, you make fun of their party. I don't care if you make fun of my religion or you make fun of their religion or their gender or my gender or gender perception. I don't care. As long as you are funny. And he is. Anyway, I'll stand on that. Anyway, All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available at any length. You can find them at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Learn more at cragop.org. And then you've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWGholsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then you've got the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a day. We will be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, y'all stay safe, and we will see you mañana.